Oh god, I've put nearly 70 hours into this game before making this video. Pokemon Legends Arceus is the Pokemon game that I've had the most fun with since probably Heart Gold and Soul Silver, to be honest, and those games released over a whole decade ago at this point. The open world take on Pokemon has been a nice breath of fresh air, and I'll be taking my sweet time tackling this game. All the good, all the bad, and all of the in-between. I should also probably mention a couple of things before I go on. There will be spoilers here. I want to tackle a large portion of the game, so it's inevitable. Another thing that I want to mention is that I completed the Pokédex entries for every single Pokemon, which took around 70 hours. This also means that I completed the main story, but I did not do all the side quests. I didn't find them interesting enough, and the rewards themselves really aren't that great. So let's get into this. So if there is one thing that I want to get to first, it's the fact that the game is just so refreshing. Gone is the Pokemon game that requires the player to beat 8 gyms, beat the Elite Four, catch Pokemon in turn-based fashion at a glacial pace. I think that catching Pokemon in real time is the single best thing about this game. Gone are the times you need to step on a specific tile, watch an annoying screen transformation, watch and hear the opposing Pokemon do their cry and battle animation, and then watch a victory screen after the fight. It is all sped up significantly. It feels so great seeing 3 or 4 Beedus right next to each other and catching them all within seconds. Some of these Pokemon will try to run away. Some of them will try to attack the player. The player can use a roll to dodge any attacks at the last second. If the player takes too much damage, they will black out. They'll drop some items and panic. Speaking of which, you can find other players' satchels for merit points and use them to buy rare items. And when I mean rare items, I really do mean rare items. I had to buy a Razor Claw here to evolve Sneasel because in my whole time with the game, I couldn't find a single one out in the wild. It's a nice thing to knock out when exploring, but I gotta ask, why the hell did my satchels never get returned? I lost about 6 or 7 of them, so that is kind of annoying. The player can crouch and use grass to try to sneak up on the Pokemon. If the player can catch them from behind, it will enhance their chance of catching them. There are also items that the player can use such as smoke bombs to make themselves harder to discover. The player can also use items like Oran Berries to lure the Pokemon into a more favorable position. This is easily the best part of Legends Arceus, seeing the Pokemon on the map and trying to figure out the best ways of catching them. But what if one doesn't want to catch the Pokemon? They want to fight it. Instead of throwing an empty Pokeball at the target, they can throw one of their Pokemon at them. If the player throws the Pokeball at them from the back, they will catch the Pokemon unaware and waste a couple of their turns. This will initiate a turn-based battle that the series is known so well for. However, these battles are completely sped up, and lower-level Pokemon can still pose a huge threat. In general, sometimes the damages seem so out of whack, and everything does decent damage. Of course, the player can still damage wild Pokemon and catch them after doing so, if they would like. The player can also run away from battle by literally running away. I like how the player can move during a battle now. It's a stupid detail, but a fun one. Another fun detail is the fact that nearby wild Pokemon might also join the battle. This can make battles difficult, even in early stages of the game. Since we are on the topic of battling, it is important to note that there are now Agile Style and Power Style moves. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, it could be argued that speed is an even more important stat because a faster Pokemon may be able to move multiple times before a slower Pokemon can move once. There will be a battle queue on the right side of the screen, and Agile Style moves will lower the base power of a move by 20, usually, but will put the Pokemon in the queue more often. Meanwhile, a Power Style move will increase both the Pokemon's move power by 20, again usually, and the accuracy by 10%, but they'll be slower in the queue. Be aware of the Pokemon's power points, as both the Agile and Power Style moves cost 2 power points instead of just 1. Interestingly, the Pokemon can still use either a Power or Agile Style move when they only have 1 power point left. These Power and Agile Style moves aren't unlocked automatically. The player can take a seat of mastery to this woman who I mistook for a man for the first few hours of the game. Sometimes a Pokemon can master a move by gaining levels. It should also be noted that this manly-looking woman can also teach the player's Pokemon several moves that they wouldn't be able to learn by level. Only 4 moves can be equipped at once, but now Pokemon can have moves in reserve that can be swapped out on the field. I think that this is an amazing change that encourages experimentation with Pokemon movesets. Crafting is another neat thing that was added to the game. Nothing too mind-blowing, but now you can collect materials on the overworld to make things like Pokeballs, stealth sprays, scatterbangs, healing items, among other things to help you out in your journey. When exploring the field, the player will find ore deposits in trees with berries or apricorns in them. To obtain these items, the player will need to throw a loaded Pokeball at them. The player's Pokemon will then attack the tree or ore deposit and get the player items. Pokemon can be hiding in both the trees or ore deposits, which will be noted by the item shaking. I won't lie, I kept getting distracted by needing to get these materials from all these damn deposits. Sometimes the ore deposits will have a shine to them. This means they'll have a rare item in them. like a Stardust. The player can race through the ranks by completing Pokedex entries. Simply catching one Pokemon of that species won't complete its Dex entry. To get it to level 10, the player will have to do basic stuff such as catching more of that Pokemon, making them faint, using super effective moves on them, evolving them, and other basic actions. The player will also unlock 3 different families of Pokeballs. The first one is the Pokeball, Great Ball, and Ultra Ball family tree, which are your standard, no-nonsense Pokeballs. The Feather, Wing, and Jet Ball will go much farther across the map than these. The Heavy, Leaden, and Gigaton Balls are harder to throw than regular Pokeballs, but will have a better chance at catching unaware Pokemon. The Pokeballs are all updated this time around and have a new feel, and I am all about it. After attempting to catch a Pokemon, it will bounce and smoke will come out of it. I love the fireworks effect after a successful capture, as well as the little jingle outside of battle. The catch rates are also so nice this time around. Great and Ultra Balls feel like a huge step up from the regular Pokeballs. In the mainline games, I sometimes felt like the extra money to get Great Balls and especially Ultra Balls over Pokeballs simply wasn't worth it. Legendaries are also much easier to catch, which I've actually heard some complaints about. I get it to a degree. Legendary Pokemon should be hard to catch, but I'd argue that there is absolutely nothing fun about watching a legendary Pokemon who is paralyzed and sitting at 1 HP escape 50 or so Ultra Balls. I definitely prefer it this way. At first, getting around the world is honestly a pain in the ass. The character him or herself can't even jump. However, the player will unlock 5 Mount Pokemon, and 4 of them do something useful. Wire Deer will allow the player to move at a much faster speed while also being able to jump. One could try to Skyrim up a mountain, but that's where Sneasler comes in. This guy will use its claws to grip onto the mountain and climb it. Basculegion will allow the player to traverse water. Meanwhile, Braviary will let the player soar the skies. The least useful one is Ursaluna, which I really only use to get the evolution item for Ursaring and complete a couple of quests. I love how the Mount Pokemon work so well off of each other. If one rides Wyodeer into the water, the game will automatically switch the Mount Pokemon to Basculegion. If the player jumps with Basculegion, the game will give the player an option to switch into Braviary, which will give the player a decent boost in the air. If the player flies into a mountain with Braviary, they can switch into Sneasler, hold onto the mountain, then let go and switch back to Braviary and get a decent vertical boost. One may argue that this isn't necessarily mind-blowing, but it feels so nice using the Mount Pokemon. The game would not be near as fun without them. I haven't even gone over Jubilife Village yet. This is more or less the hub world of the game and is where the player will be in between expeditions. It's a nice place to unwind with great music. Here they can use the farm to plant and obtain items. I only did the Apricorn Harvest because I throw Pokeballs like a madman. The Pokemon Pasture is also here, which is better than the Pokemon BC thematically, but it can be kind of a pain to use. 30 Pokemon can be stored in each of the 31 boxes, meaning that a total of 930 Pokemon can be stored. Trust me, this fills up faster than you'd think. The Galaxy Hall is the place to go to get more missions. Since we're on the topic of Jubilife Village, I want to throw this in here. The fact that the professor keeps the other starter Pokemon in his lab is just adorable. They all have predetermined spots, like Oshawott would chill out in a fish tank structure. Speaking of the starters, I think that these are great choices, and the professor will let the player keep the 2 that they didn't pick after being the main story. I think that this should have been the case in the mainline games, but whatever, I guess. Now, this may sound crazy, but I think that the decreased Pokemon roster may have actually helped the game. The Pokemon themselves are a bit more vibrant than they were in past games. It's fun throwing them out in the overworld and interacting with them. The player can throw all 6 Pokemon in their possession on the field at once, which I think is a very cute detail. A lot of the battle animations are sick this time around too. There are 242 Pokemon total, but Shaman and Darkrai can only be found if the player has a save file for Pokemon Sword or Shield for the former, and then a save file for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for the latter. Space Distortion events are also cool as hell. These will happen somewhat randomly. There is some formula that I don't understand. When one happens, Pokemon that don't naturally appear in the stage that the player is in will start to appear. This is the only way to catch some Pokemon, such as Magnemite. Stronger Pokemon will appear in this space for a while, and they take no problem in teaming up to destroy your ass. Seriously though, if the player isn't prepared, they can easily find themselves in trouble during these. Another neat thing about the Space Distortion event is the fact that rare items will spawn here too, like nuggets and colored shards. The starter Pokemon will also spawn here as well. Alpha Pokemon are a brilliant addition to the game. These Pokemon are larger than usual and have glowing red eyes. They are catchable, but they have a lower catch rate, which can be frustrating at the beginning of the game. It is scary when they start chasing the player, throwing attacks out at them, and trying to make them black out. Their level is also incredibly high compared to Pokemon around it, meaning that a game over can be imminent if the player is careless. If the player catches them, they will retain their bigger size. I decided to add an Alpha Gastrodon to my team because I thought thought it was funny. The last big positive thing I want to go over are the boss battles. These are done in real time, and the boss Pokemon throw out attacks at the player to try to make them black out. The player can damage them by throwing bombs at them. The player can throw in the Pokemon at some point during the battle, but I found it more fun and faster to just use the bombs. It almost feels like a baby's first time Souls game, running around and rolling and trying to dodge the enemy's attacks. It's nothing too mind-blowing or too difficult, but some of them, like Arceus, they could definitely whoop your ass if you're not careful. I think it's just refreshing more than anything else. So what are some neutral things about Pokemon Legends Arceus? The rewards for doing some tasks are a bit hit or miss. What does the player get when they find and capture all the unknowns? They can find a natural spawn for unknown. I mean, they can be shiny and or alpha, but that's just not worth the effort in my opinion. Although one could argue that this is needed to complete the unknown Pokedex entry, and when the entries are all completed, they'll be granted a shiny charm. This will make shiny Pokemon spawn more often. I mean, I put almost 70 hours into completing the Pokedex, but I guess it's a neat reward. Simply catching one of each Pokemon lets the player face off and keep Arceus after the battle, which that is genuinely a great reward, and it feels like it was worth the time. It is the game's final boss after all. Finding all these stupid wisps will allow the player to obtain Spiritomb. Spiritomb is neat and all, but there are also over 100 wisps to find, so I'm not sure if this is 100% worth it. Now, where this gets brutal is with the side quests. I didn't quite do all of them, and that's because the game will show the player the reward that they will get ahead of time. Sometimes they'll get something sick, like a shiny Ponyta, but other times they'll get a couple of useless items. I decided to Google and see if there was like a completionist reward for doing all these. Nope. If the quests were more fun, I would just do them to do them. With most quests not being fun in the first place, combined with weak rewards, I will happily pass on these. The reward for reaching the full star rank member is also a joke. The last big neutral thing that I can think about is the game's locations. While they are decently fun to explore, this is more so how the Mount Pokemon handle rather than the actual stages themselves being cool or memorable. There are 5 main stages in the game, and they can really be easily described as Snow Place, Water Place with a volcano, Grass Place, Marsh Place, and I can't even remember the 5th place. There are a few exciting landmarks or buildings, or honestly really anything that makes the places stand out from one another. It feels like the places are all just there to catch Pokemon. I wish that the stages themselves provided more to do, it's just what I'm saying, I guess. Okay, so I like the game a decent bit, and you could probably see that by now. While it is nice direction for the Pokemon franchise to take, I don't want to sound all positives with just a few neutrals sprinkled in there. There are a few major things that drag it down by a decent amount, and I simply cannot agree with all these 10 out of 10 reviews. If I had to pick my least favorite thing about this game, it is easily the game's story. It is just so goddamn boring, it's insane. If it had that, what I call the Nintendo effect, like Super Mario 64, Kirby's Adventure, or Pikmin, then that's fine. That's where the story is super brief, but is enough to get the player going. But this game insists on throwing boring-ass dialogue at you. And no, I wasn't just button mashing through the dialogue. At least at first, I read it all and was trying to get into the groove of the story, but nothing of value is ever being said. That's not to mention that most of the cutscenes are genuinely laughable. Whenever anything happens, the screen just fades to black. The only cool cutscenes are the ones that involve legendary Pokemon. I personally argue that my second least favorite thing about this game is the Pokedex progression itself. When a task is completed, the player will get 1 point out of 10 for that Pokedex entry, unless the task has arrows next to it. Then they will get 2 progression points. These tasks can range from catching a certain amount of Pokemon, defeating that Pokemon with a specific type of move, feeding that Pokemon a certain amount of time, stunning that Pokemon with items like the spoiled apricorn, seeing the Pokemon use a certain amount of moves a certain amount of times, or seeing the Pokemon use agile or strong moves. At first, I liked this a lot. It was fun running around catching dozens of Bidoofs, but eventually it just got pretty stale. Having the level up system like this means that you're gonna run into the same Pokemon over and over and over and over again. Getting to star level 10 also takes so much goddamn time and so many Pokedex entries, it's insane. That's not to mention that some of the Pokedex trees are simply stupid as hell. Pichu is a rare spawn, so many may be thinking that they'll just catch one and then train it to fill out the Pokedex. Except, that's not how that works. All of Pichu's tasks besides evolving it involve catching it, or giving it food. I remember searching for Pichu for about 2 hours and not finding one. I indeed went for a 100% run, which makes this game a ridiculous grind, but this still slows down the pacing to a goddamn halt. Pokemon like Pichu or Cherubi should have just followed the template for legendary Pokemon, which is just to use specific moves or move styles a few times. The tutorials and overall pacing at the beginning of the game are pretty damn brutal as well. Catching the first 3 Pokemon, which are the starters, it just takes so goddamn long before the game stops holding your hand. It feels like the game doesn't truly pick up until the player gets Wire Deer, which can be decently long time depending on the player's pace. I'm a gameplay over graphics person myself, but I gotta admit, Yeah, these graphics aren't great, and some of these issues actually genuinely affect gameplay. There are mad frame rate issues, blurry textures, pop-in issues, and what seems like a complete lack of anti-aliasing. Yes, it's a Pokemon game that's running on Switch, but it still costs a full $60, and I was hoping that it would run both and look a bit better than this. I mean, come on now, it's running at 30 FPS. The pop-in genuinely affects gameplay a bit too. It can be hard looking for those wisps for certain Pokemon when the player is gliding high on Braviary. The overall art style just does not look great, and it's a shame when games like Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Smash Ultimate, or Luigi's Mansion 3 look so much better visually and are all Switch games. So that's Pokemon Legends Arceus. As I said in the opening, this is the most amount of fun I've had with a Pokemon game in a good decade or so. Catching Pokemon in real time is so much fun. Exploring the open world on the Mount Pokemon is exhilarating. Strategizing on how to catch the Alpha Pokemon is engaging. And crafting items on the fly is super helpful. It may have some progression, story, and graphical issues, but that hasn't stopped me from pouring nearly 70 hours into the game. I enjoyed my time with Pokemon Legends Arceus immensely, and I hope that they don't drop this formula going forwards. If they make a couple more games in this style for other regions, I think that we can have a genuinely fantastic game on our hands. As for a review score, it's kinda hard on this one. Running around the open world and getting giddy when I see a Pokemon I need is a great feeling. That is really where the game excels, but almost everything else is kind of a drag. I was mostly disappointed with the side quests as I thought there would be a bit more to them. I'm gonna hold back my grading a bit and give it a 5 out of 7. I thought it was a good game, but it feels like there are some more things that they could have done right to get a 6 out of 7. It feels like a great base for a game more than a great game itself. I still had enough fun to call it good at least. I probably should have bumped Brilliant Diamond down to a 4 out of 7, but what can you do? You can always argue that review scores are dumb anyway, right?